In these really high-stakes fields, especially something as demanding as commercial transport, we tend to focus on the hardware, the tangible stuff.
The trucks, the routes, the fuel.
Exactly. We audit the fleet, we obsess over maintenance, we buy the latest software. We're always looking for that tech edge. But what if the biggest lever for safety, for performance, isn't a piece of equipment at all?
What if it's something a lot more fundamental?
That's what our sources for this deep dive are pointing to. They suggest the most powerful and, the most overlooked tool is just communication.
And we're not just talking about like handing out instructions for the day.
No, not at all. We're talking about the kind of communication that actually shapes how drivers think about their job, how they act when they're under pressure, and how they ultimately perform every single day.
Right.
So today, we're unpacking sources that really treat communication as the core operating system of a business. We're going to show you how unclear, inconsistent, or just rushed messages, how they translate directly into really expensive problems.
We're talking mistakes, tension, unsafe actions.
And lost productivity. Our mission here is to show you the specific steps to swap all that guesswork for real, genuine commitment in your operation. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's really fascinating to me is how you can draw a straight line from, say, a vague email or a hurried dispatch call, all the way to a measurable increase in risk. The foundational link, and all the research confirms this, is clarity. Drivers just perform better when expectations are crystal clear. It minimizes their mental load.
That makes so much sense, because when expectations aren't clear, you see this destructive mechanism just kick in. That lack of clarity, it creates uncertainty for the driver. And if that driver is already under pressure, traffic, fatigue, and unexpected detour, that uncertainty forces a snap decision.
A high-stakes one.
A very high-stakes one.
Exactly. And the outcomes are almost always predictable. Uncertainty leads to hesitation, which wastes time. It leads to frustration, which just compounds stress. And worst of all, it encourages shortcuts.
What shortcuts?
Because the driver is trying to solve the ambiguity on their own. They're not following a clear protocol because one wasn't given. We see this all the time. Drivers ignoring telematics warnings because they assume the system's glitchy, or maybe skipping a pre-trip check because they're confused about what the real priority is.
So getting rid of that uncertainty is the key to building confidence. And confident drivers, they aren't just, happier. They are objectively better safety assets.
More focused.
Much more focused. And better equipped to handle whatever the road throws at them. So if you want that calm, focused driver, your communication has to clearly define 3 things. And it goes way beyond just get the load there.
The first one is what success actually looks like on any given trip, and I mean specifically. Is success getting there on time? Is it avoiding any damage? Or is it hitting a fuel per mile target?
Because if management penalizes a late delivery but doesn't enforce speed limits, the message is completely mixed.
Completely flawed. The second thing is how their performance is measured, and not vaguely. You need specific, verifiable metrics. Are you measuring hard-braking events or just miles driven?
Are you looking at CSA scores or just listening for customer complaints? If the criteria are murky, a driver might optimize for the wrong thing.
Right, which leads to inefficient use of the truck or, unnecessary wear and tear.
And the third one.
And this one is so crucial for controlling chaos. What is the protocol when things go wrong? Because they will.
Inevitably.
You have to communicate the exact escalation path. If there's a road closure, do they call dispatch first? Or check the routing software? Knowing those 3 things, success, measurement, and protocol, it just fundamentally changes their decision-making from a gut reaction to following a procedure.
Let's shift a little and focus just on safety, because there's this big misconception in the industry. It's easy to blame the driver and order more training after an incident.
Always the first reaction.
But the key insight from these sources is that so many safety incidents, they're not from a lack of skill. They happen because critical information was misunderstood, or it was assumed, or it just wasn't communicated properly to begin with.
It's that invisible gap, isn't it? The one between what the sender intended and what the receiver actually does. That gap can cost lives.
Can you give us some specific examples?
Sure. Think about poorly explained load instructions. That can lead to incorrect paperwork on securement, which means higher inspection failure rates, or delivery deadlines that are communicated in a panic.
Which implies that speed is more important than safety.
Exactly. Or what about route changes that are sent out too late? That forces a driver to make a dangerous last-minute maneuver or even violate their hours of service limits because nobody told them about a delay upstream.
These are purely communication breakdowns, but the result shows up in compliance scores and, worst of all, in accident reports.
Right. You absolutely have to remove the guesswork in these high-risk jobs. Safety rules, reporting procedures, rest periods, they have to be reinforced constantly. Otherwise, the driver defaults to dangerous improvisation.
And this isn't just a local issue, is it?
No, this point is validated globally. The source materials specifically bring up the context of transport in South Africa.
And why is that so relevant for everyone listening?
Because that environment, it just magnifies all these risks exponentially. You've got incredibly long distances, huge variations in road quality, sometimes volatile security situations.
This is a highly variable environment.
Precisely. And in an environment with that much variability, ambiguity isn't just inefficient, it's genuinely life-threatening. The South African example really underscores that clarity isn't some, nice-to-have management theory.
It's a safety tool.
It's a fundamental structural barrier against accidents. And if clarity can save lives in that kind of complex scenario, just imagine the gains it can bring to a standard domestic operation.
But you said clarity is only half of it?
Right. We have to talk about consistency. I think one of the most damaging things we identified is mixed messaging. It just destroys trust.
So a driver hears one thing from their dispatcher,
a different policy from management in a memo, and then something totally contradictory in a post-incident review.
That kind of breakdown signals incompetence from the top, doesn't it?
It does. And when trust breaks down, disengagement is the logical next step. Drivers stop caring about collective success, and they start focusing on just protecting themselves.
Or they just get cynical about every instruction.
Yeah, exactly. The company is basically training its drivers to ignore what they're told because they know the rules can change at any moment.
So the power of alignment is really about institutionalizing the message. It means saying the same thing, the same way, every time. From safety to maintenance to dispatch.
When expectations are aligned across the whole business, it helps drivers understand what the core, unchanging priorities are.
And that consistency allows them to actually trust management's decisions. They know the policies aren't just arbitrary or made up to blame them later.
That reliability makes the driver's actions predictable. And that's essential for business goals, like meeting contract terms or keeping your insurance rates down. Consistency turns chaos into a manageable, predictable operation.
And predictability is the bridge you need for fair accountability. This is critical for performance management. Our sources drew a really sharp contrast here.
I remember this part.
If your instructions are vague, any conversation you have with the driver about their performance becomes emotional. It becomes defensive. They can always say, well, I thought you meant this, or nobody told me that was the priority.
Right.
But when communication is clear and consistent, when those 3 points of success, measurement, and protocol are known, accountability feels fair. It feels professional. You're not debating assumptions anymore. You're just discussing the facts.
It totally shifts the conversation. Clear communication sets drivers up for success. It defines their roles before the trip, it explains the consequences up front, and it gives them feedback based on data, not on someone's assumption about their attitude.
So it turns a shouting match into a constructive analysis.
Exactly. And that kind of clear, fair accountability is a huge factor in reducing that expensive driver turnover we always talk about.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. The beautiful part about fixing this is that it doesn't mean you have to buy some expensive new technology.
Not at all.
The sources really emphasize that improving communication just requires intention and structure, not high-tech toys. It's about designing the process the right way.
Absolutely. And we have 5 practical, actionable steps here that any fleet manager or leader can put into practice, tomorrow, regardless of their fleet size.
Let's break them down one by one. I think these are critical takeaways.
Yeah.
First is keep messages simple and specific. We're all guilty of this, writing long, dense emails that bury the real instruction in paragraph 4.
Right. And in transport, time is money, but mental bandwidth is safety.
So the driver needs to be able to extract the core instruction quickly.
You have to be ruthless. Focus on the what, the when, and the why it matters. Simple communication means fewer data points for the driver to process at once, which reduces the cognitive load that leads to mistakes.
Okay, second, repeat key messages. We just assume that a message sent is a message understood. But important stuff, safety changes, new regulations, new processes, it should be communicated more than once, and probably in different formats.
Definitely. A text about a route change should be followed by a quick verbal check-in, for instance. That repetition just reinforces the learning and makes sure it gets absorbed so the correct action becomes more automatic when things get stressful.
Third, and this might be the most important one for changing the culture, encourage questions without fear.
This is huge.
If a driver asks for clarification about a loading procedure and gets an exasperated sigh or is treated like they're incompetent, they will stop asking. Full stop.
And the second they stop asking, they start guessing. They start taking risks. Management has to actively create an environment where asking for clarity is seen as a sign of professionalism, not weakness.
So you reward the driver who asks the question today to prevent the costly mistake tomorrow.
You have to. Fourth, close the loop. Never assume understanding, especially when money or safety is on the line. The few seconds it takes to confirm is nothing compared to the cost of a major misunderstanding.
So this could be like a mandatory readback of instructions.
A readback, a digital confirmation click, a quick check-in from a supervisor, something designed to test comprehension, not just that they got the message. It's an essential final safety check.
And fifth and final, train supervisors to communicate consistently. Your frontline management, they are the ultimate filter. They're the point where company policy meets reality. If your supervisors are all interpreting policy differently or giving mixed messages, the whole system fails. It doesn't matter how clear the memo from the head office was.
That fifth point is so vital. It links communication directly to your culture and to your leadership's credibility. Drivers are watching, how messages are handled tells them everything about whether the leadership is organized and professional.
And if dispatch can't get their story straight,
why should a driver trust their safety procedures?
The cultural dividends here are just immense. When communication is clear, consistent, and respectful, drivers feel valued. That goes straight to morale, straight to retention rates.
And safety stops being some rule from on high and becomes a shared responsibility, something they're actually invested in.
Keeping your best people, cutting down on the crazy costs of driver turnover, that's a massive, cost-effective competitive edge right there.
And it brings us right back to that initial claim. So many transport businesses struggle, not because of their trucks or their rates, but because of a chronic misalignment between their people.
Caused by poor information flow. So clear communication is probably the single most cost-effective lever you can pull to improve performance, reduce incidents, and build up leadership credibility, all without buying a single new piece of tech. It just optimizes the human element.
The ultimate goal here, and this is probably the deepest takeaway, is to shift from just compliance to genuine commitment.
What's the difference?
Well, when drivers really understand the why behind decisions, and they know the non-negotiables around safety and what excellence actually looks like for them, they move past just following rules to avoid getting in trouble.
They commit to the outcome.
They commit to the outcome. And that commitment is the only place you can build sustainable long-term safety and performance.
So that whole journey, from uncertainty and guesswork to confident, consistent, committed performance, it's powered almost entirely by the clarity of how information flows.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, it means this knowledge isn't just for fleet managers. The core principle that radical clarity builds trust and prevents costly assumptions. That applies anywhere an operation depends on people working together.
Any coordinated human action.
Any coordinated action. A business unit, a personal project, anything. So if clear communication ensures alignment and safety on the road, consider where in your own professional or personal life you might be relying on assumed understanding instead of explicitly confirming what needs to be done. What unseen, costly misunderstanding might that be setting you up for?